if you can introduce yourselves.
I'm Jason Hughes. I'm the Director of Engineering on Mirandus.
Okay.
I'm Manuel Zapata. Started as an animator, now I'm a senior producer.
Oh,
I'm Michael McCarthy, and I'm the game director of Mirandus.
all right. Can you guys, somebody, tell me a little bit about the game?
Mirandus is a classic fantasy MMO adventure. We are powered by blockchain and letting players own their own content. And we are aiming to bring adventure back with the game. I feel like adventure has been all but lost in games and titles these days.
Yes.
So this is a dangerous world. There are no NPCs telling you what to do. There are no maps. We are just turning you loose and setting the stage, and you have to learn to work with others to craft and survive and push deeper into the world and uncover the secrets of the world.
That sounds like fun.
It's cool.
It is cool. So what is it, so if you were to compare it to something, I know you can't compare it to something, but what would you say it was like? So in other words, for someone that doesn't play video games very often.
I knew I would be asked this question, and I've been giving this a lot of thought. I don't think that I have experienced a parallel to this that feels the way our game feels. I don't think there's a clear analog for people.
Oh, cool.
Because game systems, these days, games in general, are just very complex and overdone. Too much UI, too many of these secondary and tertiary mechanics and checkboxes and lists of things you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And I just don't feel like I've had an experience that's as clean as ours.
That sounds
in
great.
recent history at all. There's pieces of some games that I think resonate.
Well, for one, Mirandus is a first-person game. It's not a third-person MMO, and that sets it apart already. People don't do that anymore.
Oh, okay.
So you're immersed in the world, and the whole direction we're going with it is we're trying not to build gamey mechanics. Instead, we're trying to build enough of a world simulation that you feel like you're part of it. And what you choose to do is really kind of up to you. Not everybody's an adventurer. Some people want to stay in town and become really good at crafting, or maybe they're going to be the kinds of people who they're just go-betweens between other people who are doing their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
Food and sleep and everything that you would need to survive. You need to generate those things. Players own buildings. Players own inns where you'll sleep. They need to build those inns so that people have a place to sleep and recover and heal.
Mm-hmm.
Our community has been very clear that they don't just want to run around and stab things to death. They
Right.
want a fantasy world that they really can live, play, and work in.
Right.
That we have people that want to just be farmers and provide food to the ecosystem. We have players that want to be involved in mining. One of the things that's special about Mirandus is we have avatars that we call exemplars, and there are only 50,000 of them. And what's cool about blockchain is you can guarantee scarcity. When you play other MMOs and other games and they tell you something's rare, it's not true. They can make 1 million of them on the server, and how do you know it's rare? The nice thing about blockchain is you can actually look at the contract and know how many of something there truly are. And one of the things that's fun about our avatars is there's only 1,000 elves. There will never be 1,001 elves. Elves are
Only
rare.
1,000.
Elves are special. So that feeling that you get when you're watching Lord of the Rings, you know, that if you saw a group of elves walking through a forest, everyone just stops and hides and checks it out because it's such a special occurrence. We're trying to create that in this fantasy world. So
Wow.
I think it'll be really fun. It's really cool. It doesn't quite play like and feel like any other game that I've experienced. I would say there's some moments where, what's that hunting game? Call the Hunter, Call the Wild?
Yep.
Or, you know, there's some moments in the game that almost feel like that. We don't have a soundtrack in the game. There's no music playing.
Mm-hmm.
You'll only hear music inside our game if a player plays it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no music just pouring in your ear. Again, if you're out in a beautiful field and the sun is setting and the wind is blowing through the trees, that's all you'll hear.
Oh, that's nice.
Creatures in the world don't have their spawn points, and you sit and farm them at their spawn points, creatures are reactive. Creatures will see you very far away. If they're hungry, a wolf that's hungry will move to try to find food and eat a rabbit or drink water out of a stream. So we're trying to set up a very simple ecosystem that makes the world always feel fresh and interesting. Trolls don't like sunlight. A troll will find shade or darkness or a cave as the sun is setting. You don't know what cave he's going to, but he will identify, this is a shady spot, this will keep me out of the sun, and he will find that spot and go into it. So you never quite know where the troll might be. He's living his life, and you're there to live and try to survive yours too. So I think it's a very special and different game that peels away all the UIs and all the information, and you're actually looking through the screen like you're looking through a window into a beautiful medieval world.
Wow. This sounds really good.
It's
It sounds like it's right up my alley, because that's the kind of stuff I like. I'm not one that has to go around and try to find things because I never can find them. And it sounds also like it really helps people to think. Instead of just handing them things, that you're thinking was that your intent for this one?
That was absolutely my intent.
Okay.
There's kind of two key compulsions that you can tap into as a game player. One of them is your lizard brain, and we've all scienced this to death. It's if you're making games or you're making entertainment media, it's called the slot machine.
Oh.
And basically you're tapping on things, and as long as there is a key sound and a flash of light at regular intervals, it keeps your lizard brain engaged. You don't really know what you're doing. 3 hours went by. You don't really have a lot to talk about after it's over, but you were doing something for a long time.
Right.
And there's another compulsion in gaming that I really love and feel more strongly about. It's something, I have kids, something I'd be proud for my kids to play. And that's the compulsion of what if. What if I did this? It's a puzzle. How do I survive in this world? What if I tried this? How strong is that guy over there? I wonder if I could take him. Maybe I should get 3 or 4 people together and go do it. Gosh, maybe I should gear up first. I don't really have a great sword. Should we get bow and arrow? Maybe we should go ranged attack and try to, it's another compulsion to figure out something.
Right.
And to wonder and create that sense of wonder. So I think it's just a wonderful thing to build. And it's something that I'd be proud if my kids wanted to play and were able to survive. It's hard. We're not making a game to be hard. I think what we're proposing is that if you were in a medieval world full of evil creatures in the forest, it would be a challenge. It would be difficult.
It would be difficult.
And in this world, another thing that you don't see too much in games, because they want to keep you involved in that slot machine grind. In our world, if you die, there's big penalties. Similar to maybe EverQuest back in the day, where you will lose a significant amount of experience points. You can respawn, but you come back a little foggy. You come back not quite the same self you were. By putting penalties with death, what you're doing is you're saying you need to be smart and think about how you're approaching this. You can't just run in and die and jump back up and run in and die.
Right.
You really need to consider how you're approaching dangerous environments. And be with your friends and work as a group to try to take something down. And what's cool about that is you walk around the world with a completely different sense, a completely different feeling. Everything is scary.
Right.
If you see a dark cave, you're not like, I'm gonna run in there. You're like, what's in there?
What's in there?
Who's in there? Does anyone know what's in there? Has anyone been in there? You start talking to people, daring each other to enter, saying maybe you should back each other up. The other thing that's cool is when you see a high-level player. If you see a high-level player walk into the tavern, everybody probably already knows their name. Like, oh my God, look, oh, there they are. That's incredible. Heroes can actually be heroes. And in most games you're playing these days, if someone's level 80 or level 90, is it cool? No, it's not cool. It just means you're not a great player. You just spent a lot of time. I too am going to be level 90 if I just sit here and play this game all day for a month or two.
Right.
So there's it's not really prestigious. You just put a lot of time in.
Right.
So in our game, if you are able to take on the most challenging areas and beasts of the game, it means you are really doing a lot of things right. And so I think that's really cool and interesting too.
Yeah.
It opens up the space for heroes to be heroes.
Yes, exactly. So you mentioned creatures. What kind of creatures do we have?
It's classic fantasy stuff.
Is it? Okay. Dragons?
It is. I feel as a game developer, you can really make up weird shit. But then it's no one knows what you're talking about. They kind of have to relearn everything.
Right.
Whereas there's so much fantasy lore out there that we really want to leverage things that people understand and can grasp onto. We've got orcs and halflings and humans and elves and kind of a classic fantasy adventure.
Yeah.
Out in the wild, you'll see goblins and trolls and all the basic stuff that we've come to love.
Yeah.
Reading Tolkien and reading everything else that we've been watching movies and
Yeah.
There's also a lot of wildlife too, like that, and because wildlife forms sort of the base of the food pyramid. We're not going super deep on the simulation aspect of that, but we do have the intention of, we have rabbits, and then there's wolves, and then we have deer, and then there will be more and more creatures and things for you to hunt with a bow. Like,
Okay.
I don't know if we'll have pheasant, but we'll at least have some larger birds.
Mm-hmm.
And these are all networked, so everybody sees the same thing. And you may go out in a hunting party and go hunt deer, and then you run across a goblin, and you're like, we need to go back.
Yeah.
Goblins aren't easy. Or maybe there's 5 of us, and now we can probably take out a goblin.
I don't think we can take it.
Yeah. So, but some of the differences between what Mirandus does and most games do is that we don't want monsters to feel like basically monster pinatas, where they're just there for you to hit
beat
them
up
a few times, and then they drop candy on the ground and you grab a bunch of stuff. Monsters don't want to die.
Right.
Same way you don't want to die.
Right.
So they really don't want you to walk up to them and smack them and kill them. So they're going to think about whether they want to engage with you too, or they may find it's better if I go back to where the rest of the goblin camp is, and then bring some friends.
Okay.
Or they may be hungry, so they're going to go like a wolf may come and find you because you're by yourself, and they think they can take you.
Right.
And it may be not one wolf, but a pack of wolves that are coming after you and have some pack dynamics. So there's a significant amount of engineering going into making the AI interesting and not predictable.
Yeah.
And we have an engineer working full time on making the AI learn. So if you beat the same monster the same way several times, they may not be possible to beat the same way next time, or it'll be harder, or they'll recognize that strategy and try and find a way to survive a little bit longer. So the longevity of the game hopefully will be a lot longer than a typical game, where we're not just dialing up hit points and dialing up defense and making things harder because the numbers are bigger, but actually requiring you to be a little bit more observant and reactive to the situation. And to the extent that we're going to have the monsters be able to hear you when you're coming. So monsters may be more or less sensitive to sound. And as you're walking across the field, if you're in bulky plate mail, you're clanking the whole way.
Right.
They're going to actually look and pay attention to you. It's like, I know you're coming long before you actually get here. But if you're in leather, or if you're a stealthy character, you can get closer before they pay attention to you. So you're not emitting quite so much noise.
Yeah, we don't have the ability for you to just type stuff in. Again, don't break the reality that I'm in this fantasy world. We actually are spending a lot of time and energy making a voice system that we're really proud of. So what will happen is you will be speaking and communicating with people around you. But as you speak into the microphone, we record just the phonemes and send that as a very small bit of data to the other clients and the other computers and recreate what it is you've said in voices that you can choose from. And this is really cool because it's very elegant. It's a very small amount of information to send. And Jason and I both have daughters. And one of the things that's really hard for women in games, especially with voices, the second they start talking, you get a lot of slimy, creep balls hanging around the whole time. So what's really nice about this system is, you can be a girl and sound like an orc.
Okay. So it changes the voice.
Yes. So you'll have many different voices that you can choose from. And as you say things naturally to you on the microphone, what's coming out on the other side is the voice that you've chosen. And really cool because it kind of opens the doors for, we've been thinking about voice talent and actors, and you can sound like anybody.
Yeah.
So our system for that is we're actually going to be starting to play it in the next 2 weeks, I think, right, Jason? Which is kind of cool. But it's a very complex thing. It's a
Yeah.
very complex thing to generate, but we think that'll be really fun. And we want players to work together and speak together and communicate with each other to learn about what they need. Jason was talking about how things will hear you. Creatures will hear you. If you are mining and you're taking your pickaxe to the rocks, they will hear.
I'll hear that.
If you yell at your friend, I mean, you'll need to yell at them sometimes if they get too far away. You can whisper if they're close, but when they're over there, hey, over here, you'll have to yell. Creatures will also hear that. They'll hear that too.
That is really cool.
So we're just trying to, you don't want to overdo this stuff and turn it into I joke about it, called PhD projects. This is not a PhD project. This is stuff that, you're putting together the simplest set of rules that you can stand up to make a believable world and ecosystem.
Right.
And I think we're prioritizing it and going about it the right way.
I do too. It's what it sounds like. It sounds like it's very, very interesting. When do you expect this to be ready for the public?
I think it's going to take us probably a year to develop the content. We've got, the game exists in zones. Our zones are kilometer by kilometer in each zone. Sometimes there can be up to an additional half kilometer by half kilometer space of dungeons. So they're pretty beefy. But I think we probably need another year of content. The core tech is pretty much there. The tools are pretty much there. That stuff just gets better over time. But we probably have another year to get all the creatures and the dungeons and everything built. After that, it's really just a matter of how the difficulties of launch.
Right.
So live ops, where are our servers? What are the admin rights? We're one shard. I think that's important to note. We're one world that you're living in. So there's not servers all over the world
Oh, gotcha.
that you're logging into. This is one world, one single world, and everyone that's playing is all in the same place, which we think is pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
But live ops is very difficult. And especially, we're on blockchain, and that means that when you craft something, it's yours. You own it. You have it in your hand.
Wow.
And, if people aren't familiar with what blockchain can provide, it is bringing back true ownership. That's lost these days. In the old days, when you would buy something, it would be on a cartridge. This is yours.
Yeah.
And if you didn't want this anymore, you could sell it to the neighbor guy. That's
Right.
It was yours. You bought it. You own it. And where has that gone?
Right.
Nowadays, what do you own? Not only do you not own the games that you're buying, typically, your first thing you sign is a terms of service sheet saying everything in the game is the game company's.
Right.
You can be shut off, and we can take your account and everything in it at a moment's notice if you break any of these infractions. What's cool about blockchain is it lives on a decentralized network run by people out in the world. If you have something, we couldn't take it from you even if we wanted to. It exists on the blockchain, and it's yours to do with as you will.
As you want to.
So it's interesting, and it just feels like the right thing to do to empower players to do this. If you've spent time and money and finally made it to the bottom of the dungeon and got that magic sword, it's yours.
Wow.
And if you want to give it to somebody at the bar or the restaurant, you just pop it over their QR code. It's now theirs.
And now
when
it's
they
theirs.
load the game up, they'll see it, and you won't see it anymore.
That also
Oh,
means that bugs are forever.
Bugs are forever.
Bugs
Huh?
are forever. They're
Yeah.
permanently part of the blockchain. And that's what I'm worried about is we have to have all of the bugs, the important bugs, worked out.
Yeah.
We have to have good controls over what happens when someone finds an exploit, because almost every MMO, there's a way to duplicate items or make gold coins or whatever. So we have to make sure that there's no bugs, and if there are bugs, there's a way to shut those things off before they get exploited too much.
Yeah.
Or make it impossible for them to have bugs. Like we in blockchain, we can have exactly 5 magic swords, and there will never be more than 5. But if someone can find a way to unlock all 5 of them, that's a problem.
Oh, I see what you mean.
So it's possible for there to be bugs, and it's software, and software has bugs. So we have to be very careful before we light everything up. But as we're getting closer, we're standing up more and more of the core tech, and those are the gameplay features. And we've actually had 5 releases already. We've been in development for 2 years. We've had 5 releases where different parts of the game have been stood up, and we've let the community that have already been a part of our development they've been in playing it, seeing as it develops. And if you look online, there's YouTube videos going back at least till, what was it,
Even
2021?
2021.
Yeah. So
Oh,
early
wow.
2021, and you'll see how the art style has evolved and changed, and how the gameplay has evolved and changed. And the last tech test we did was 2 months ago, where it was a fully playable multiplayer, 3 maps that you could kind of zone between by going through doorways. And players, I think we peaked out at about 450 people at a time running around, and it's not a very big space, but it felt really full. You know, a lot of people running around, and the performance was pretty good, and servers mostly stood up, You know,
Those
let's be
darn
honest,
servers.
it's super early. But yeah, we had a really good test. We had a boss character that all the players had to group together, and in order for the first group to go kill it, it took 45 of them. And it took them 3 days to gear up before they went and attacked. And it was an epic battle. It was really cool. And then they managed to get really good at it after a few more tries.
Yeah.
But you know,
Sweet exploits.
it was pretty good.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot
It
of
does.
fun. And I think one of the things that Jason mentioned that is fun about what it is we're doing is you never get to see how games are made.
True.
No one ever shares that information. They wait until marketing is convinced they can run some sweet video and have everything look all shiny and cool with a big soundtrack. You know, I think as game developers, we always have the experience of telling people, you know, you have the conversation, hey, what do you do? Well, I make games. Like, whoa, what's that like? And, you know, so we really wanted to share what it's like to make a game. What do we
Right.
start with? Where do we start? So we've involved our community in every step of our development and shown them things you would never, ever get to see normally.
Yeah.
And talked them through, like, hey, guys, look, this is, you know, here's what we're dealing with. This is really difficult. This probably doesn't work too well. Check this out. This is working great. But just, you know, involve them in what it is we're doing and
Yeah.
work with them closely, show them our progress. And so it's really fun. It's really fun. It feels natural to engage.
Yeah.
Discord's our primary place where we do that.
That's
It's
really
awesome, man. It's awesome. Our fans are awesome.
Yeah. And it does sound like I said, it sounds like something I would definitely want, because I'm a Lord of the Rings fan, like big times anyway. Because when you said orcs, I was like, huh? And then elves, huh?
Well, I think the coolest part about this world, speaking of Lord of the Rings, is the magic is actually real magic. It's rare. So we have materium. It's like our arcane magical substance of the
Our
world.
mana, if you will.
And so, you know, usually in games, it's like everyone's blasting off spells, and it's meh, you know,
Yeah.
there's no weight to it. There's no rarity to it.
Right.
But with materium, I don't know if you're gonna see people doing spells like that. It's probably gonna be more like a Gandalf moment,
Oh,
where
Thou
if you
shalt not pass.
If you see that happening, it's probably a very rare moment in the game that you witness. So how do we
Someone
do that?
can wield a fireball. That's a big deal. And when they cast it, that's a big deal.
That is really cool.
So magic is going to be very, very powerful. And then, again, blockchain, you know, it's interesting because our magic, our mana, you can acquire out in the world when you're killing monsters. You can find more materium out in the world. And players can use that to cast spells or complete crafts, or even if you die and you want to come back without a penalty, if you have enough magic, you can come back without any penalty at all. And that, you know, again, the power of blockchain allows that to exist inside of our game and then also exist out in the secondary market and on exchanges. So Ethereum is an ERC20 token that's already being traded out there in the wild. So it's fun to be in a game where you're using magic, where you're acquiring magic, and that gives you power. And there's something interesting about taking it out of the game and giving you power in the real world.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is great. You guys have anything else you want to add before? Oh, you good? I'm impressed. This is going to be cool. I'm definitely going to be watching for this one. And I retire in December, so I'm going to have a lot of time to do.
All right.
20 years with the state, yeah, I definitely.